Hey everybody, it's Randy with Randy Reviews. Welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to do something a little bit different. It's not fashion related, none of that, but it's still a review nonetheless. And today I want to talk about my IVF journey. So if you're not familiar with IVF, it is short for in vitro fertilization, and it is basically a way to get pregnant by bypassing your tubes. So if you have a tube blockage, if you have a tube ligation, meaning you got your tubes tied or you got your tubes fried, you can use IVF to still get pregnant. So the reason that I even had to do IVF is because both of my tubes are blocked. The reason how they got blocked, what is blocked with, is an unknown. Once your tubes is blocked, and they basically just leave them be, because trying to unblock them would damage them even more and could possibly damage your uterus or your ovaries. So it's basically a done deal. Once they're blocked or once they've been tied or burned, they're pretty much done. They can heal themselves sometimes, but it could take a long time before that happens. So that's why I had to do IVF. So how it started, let's go back to 2021. I got married, and yeah, next step was, okay, what's up with the kids? So I went for my annual, and I found out I had fibroids. I had 3 very, very small fibroids. They were less than 2 centimeters at the time. So, my doctor really wasn't worried about them. She was like, they're small. The placement, where they're placed at, they're like in the back of the uterus. So they're not, in the way of a baby being, produced. So just go ahead and try, start timing your ovulation and trying when you're ovulating and all of that stuff. So we got right on it, because I was already 30 when I got married. So we already kind of knew, like, as soon as we get married, we're going to start trying to have kids. Like, we waited probably like 6 months and then got started with, keeping up with ovulation and all of that stuff. So we were doing what the doctor told us to do, and, it was unsuccessful. I had a few times where I thought I was pregnant because my period was like 2 days late and stuff like that. And just FYI, I have always had a timely period. It always come every 28 days, like clockwork. I've never had any issues. So when I will be a couple days late, I will be thinking, okay, I'm pregnant. I will wait, take a pregnancy test. It will come back negative, and, it will be the same thing. So when you're going through that phase, your doctor will tell you to try for at least a year. And even prior to this, even prior to getting married, we hadn't been using contraception for years, because we've been together for years. So I was not on birth control, and we were not using condoms. So the fact that I had never got pregnant by accident was kind of a sign to me that something was wrong, but I just didn't know what it was, because I've always had normal pap smears. I've never had any issues. Like I said, the fibroid thing was the first time in my life that, I had a problem. So, I was like, okay, so this whole time I'm thinking it's the fibroids that's causing me not to get pregnant. So after a year of trying, my doctor told me to go take this HSG test, and basically they take this dye and they shoot it up your tube to see, what's going on. It highlights your tubes on the ultrasound and show them if you have a blockage or if something wrong with your ovary, like all of that. So I did that test, and it showed that both of my tubes were blocked. So that's how we found out. And honestly, y'all, it was a relief. It was really a relief to finally know what was going on, because that whole time, that whole year was hell. Trying and thinking you pregnant and not being pregnant and getting your period and this and that. It was horrible. Like, I hated that so much. I honestly wish I didn't have to do that. I wish I would have just told my doctor. I would have just lied and said, yeah, we've been trying for a year, because she would have let me go ahead and do that HSG test right up front. But, you know, I still wanted to do what the doctor, I trust my doctor and I trust my professionals. So I went ahead and did what she told me to do. So after I did that HSG test, showed that my tubes was blocked, immediately, you know, they were like, you got to do IVF. There's no other way. I was like, we can't unblock the tubes. No, period. There's no other way. So I said, okay. So, there's 2 steps in IVF. The first step is the retrieval, the egg retrieval, and then the second step is the egg transfer. So in order for me to do the egg retrieval, I had to lose weight. My BMI was too high. They said I only had to lose 5 pounds, but I lost more than 5 pounds because I was tired of dealing with it anyway, the weight issue. So I lost about 24 pounds, somewhere around there, before I started. So once I lost the weight, I was able to start to prepare for the egg transfer. So when you're doing the egg transfer, you have to take a lot of medicine. You have to take shots. You have to take pills. You have to take a lot of stuff. You constantly going to the doctor. You're going to the doctor like every other day to give blood and take in and get ultrasounds. Because basically what they're doing is creating a whole bunch of eggs, creating a whole bunch of embryos rather at one time, or they're eggs, creating a whole bunch of eggs at one time so that they can retrieve them at once, so you can have more eggs available for the next step, which is the egg transfer. And you want to get as many eggs as possible so that you won't have to keep going through that process. Because number one, it's tiring on your body, and number two, it's very, very expensive. The medicine is the bulk of the money. I was lucky enough that my insurance paid for a lot of this, so I did not come out of pocket, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars like most people have to. So that was the good part of it. So I wasn't stressed about that. The medicine was a little bit stressful because you do a lot of it at home. You take the shots yourself, or somebody has to administer them for you, and then you have to keep up with all these pills. And it was like a schedule. Like every time I go to the doctor, they would give me a new schedule. Like, okay, do this for the next 3 days, come back. Do this for the next 3 days, come back. And seeing how you progress or whatever. So after I did all of that, I did that for about 3 or 4 weeks of taking the medicine, going to the doctor, getting checked out every 2-3 days, giving blood, getting ultrasounds, making sure that the eggs was developing properly in my ovaries before it was time to retrieve. So after your eggs get to a certain size, they say, okay, it's time. So I had to go under anesthesia, which was one of the reasons my BMI had to be lower, was because of the anesthesia. And it was only like a 2-hour operation, if that. It was not long at all. It was done right at my doctor's office. My husband was there. I got 9 eggs that were retrieved. And right then and there, they take them and they put them with the sperm to see which ones will mature and turn into embryos. So out of the 9, I think 7 of them were viable. And then out of the 7, 5 of them actually matured and turned into embryos. So that means I have 5 embryos, which is the egg and the sperm together, that were now in cryo freeze for future use. So they put them together. Once they develop, they freeze them so that you can use them for however long you want to use them. So there's that. After I did that, they tell you to rest for about a month before you go to the next step, which is the transfer. Now, for me, I was lucky enough to have to do a surgery in between the two, because I had not only the fibroids, but I also had cysts. So the fibroids, like I said, was in a spot where they didn't feel like they needed to be removed or touched or anything. But the cysts, they wanted to get rid of those, because my doctor said once you remove the cysts, it it kind of activates your uterus and makes it more sticky so that it would grab and hold on to the embryo, and the embryo can implant better. So I had to do a surgery at the hospital. My doctor was my surgeon as well. Like he's the best. He's one of the best in Texas. He does everything. So anyway, he did my surgery. He removed the 3 cysts. And then I had to recover for another month. And also because everything is calculated off of your cycle. So some stuff you have to start, when your cycle is starting, or when you're off your cycle, or when you're ovulating, all of this stuff. So it can, it's very timely. So it can take a little bit of time based on your cycle. And because you're taking all of these different hormones and stuff like that, it could mess up your cycle. But I was lucky. Outside of having to do that cyst removal, everything was exactly on time as it should have been. So I had, after I had my cyst removed, I went in to do the egg transfer. So they have 2 different ways they can do the egg transfer. They can do it like naturally based off of your cycle, and you don't have to take any extra medicines or nothing, and they just do it. Or they do like a medicated transfer. So at first he tried the natural transfer without me taking any medicines and stuff like that, and it didn't work out. I ended up ovulating when I wasn't supposed to. So that's when I had to do the medicated version. So yeah, I had to take a few more medicines and do some shots and stuff like that, which was fine with me because I had already did it for the first part. So I'm just like, at this point, come on, let's just do what we got to do. So I had to do that, and we did the egg transfer, and that took all of 10 minutes. You don't go to, that's not a procedure that you have to go under for or nothing like that. You literally go in there, and it basically is like a pap smear as far as like what you're doing. And so it took 10 to 15 minutes. They put the embryo in there, and I was on my way. They told me go home, sleep with your legs up, and come back in about 6 or 7 days to take a pregnancy test or a blood test. And if you are pregnant, your HCG levels will be on the rise. Them 6 days or however long I had to wait to take my test was so crazy, y'all. Like I was feeling stuff. I was feeling like I was pregnant, and I was feeling like I wasn't pregnant. I was checking for blood. I didn't take a pregnancy test myself because I just didn't even want to put myself through that stress if it came back negative. So I just had to wait till my blood test date. Those 7 days were horrible though. They weren't as worse as that year of trying and not getting pregnant, but it was a little bit stressful, I ain't gonna lie. And that's the last thing you want to do is stress when you're going through this process. So I went, took my blood test at like 10 a.m. By like 3 p.m. they had my results back, and I was pregnant. My first attempt. So they tell you up front, it's a 50-50 chance of you being pregnant your first round. Most people do not get pregnant their first round. Most people have to do 2 egg transfers before they get pregnant. I got pregnant on my first egg transfer, which not only was great, but it left me with 4 embryos that I can use for future babies if I want to have more kids. So today, as of today, I'm almost 6 months pregnant. Woohoo! But yeah, I think overall I had the best experience that I could have had for this type of procedure. Now don't get me wrong, it's very stressful, it's very time consuming, and it's not for everybody because it's so much. You have to pay attention to so much. You have to learn so much. You have to do a lot at home by yourself. Like I said, you have to administer the shots yourself. My husband was giving me shots, and even after I got pregnant, I had to still take progesterone shots for 12 weeks up until I was 12 weeks pregnant. So that's just an FYI. But it worked out. And in total, as far as time span, it was about 4 months. It was about 4 months. But remember, I had to do an extra step because I had to have my cyst removed, and then I had a month that I ovulated, so then that pushed me back. So without those 2 things in there, I could have been pregnant in less than 8 weeks, literally. And he told me that, my doctor told me that when we first sat down with him. He said, you got good uterus, you're young, you have good ovarian reserve, meaning I'm producing a lot of eggs, I'm good. My husband's sperm was good. He like, you gonna be pregnant in 8 weeks. I'm like, you lying. You know what I'm saying? But we didn't start right away because I had to lose the weight. So, you know, when I think about it, I probably could have been pregnant at the top of 2024, but I had some some extra circumstances that some of you guys might not have. So, you know, and then the financial aspect, that's another huge huge circumstance that you have to think about. I think on average it's around 12 to 15,000 for the entire thing. It might be more than that, maybe 15 to 20,000 for the entire thing. Mine was mostly covered. I only had to pay my 10%, so I only ended up paying like 2,000 for everything, for the medicine, for the procedures, for the surgery, for everything. I only paid about $2,000 out of pocket, which I mostly covered by using my FSA card. So probably out of pocket, I probably paid like $900. So that was another barrier that I didn't have, that some other people may have. But I think if you want to be a parent, it's worth it. It's worth it to try. It's worth it to save the money. It's worth it to get a loan. We get loans for stupid shit all the time, for cars, for, you know what I'm saying, loans for TVs and furniture. For a child that's going to be in your life for the rest of your life, if you really want a child, I say do it. I say don't give up. I say find you a great doctor who understands what needs to be done. Find you the best doctor, shit, because for the money you paying, you want the best of the best. And I found the best of the best. He was actually recommended to me from my OB, so I didn't even have to do no research or nothing. But when I looked him up, he had outstanding reviews. He had like 5 out of 5. Like, everybody loved him. They said he had great bedside manner. He was very knowledgeable. He was positive, and he was understanding. And he was all of those things. When I was having an issue with losing the weight, you know, he tried to recommend me to another doctor that he thought would probably work better with me because of my BMI. Basically saying he specializes in plus size or overweight patients. But when I looked him up, he didn't have the same good reviews, and I was like, no, I'm sticking with this person. I feel it in my spirit. This is the person that's going to give me my baby. So I'm going to stick with him, and I'm going to lose the weight. And that's what I did. And it was worth it, and it worked out. You know, obviously, I'm still pregnant, so I haven't got to the end of the rainbow just yet as far as, you know, delivering the baby and everything. But after my IVF experience, I can say that I'm honestly blessed. Like, everything went my way. Everything. Like, nothing went wrong. When everything could have went wrong, it didn't. And obviously I had something to do with that as well, because I stayed positive. I didn't stress out, and I did exactly what the doctors told me to do as far as taking my medicine and, you know, getting my shots and going to the doctor like I was on it, you know. And I'm grateful that I have a flexible job to where I could have been going to doctor's appointments every 2-3 days, because some people won't be able to do that either unless they have, like, you know, medical leave or something benefit that they can use. But I didn't even have to take off any time. I would just go to my doctor's appointment, come home, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, so that's my IVF journey, my review. And I'm just going to tell everybody, if you want to do it, do it. Do not listen to what other people have to say. I only know one other person in my life who went through IVF, and she only went through it because she wanted to pick the gender of her child. She actually didn't need it. Like, it wasn't a necessity for her to have kids. So I'm the first person in my entire family and friend group who went through IVF because I needed it, because my tubes were blocked. And being at the age of 33, you know, it doesn't seem old. Everybody, you young. It's a lot when you this age, having your first child. So yeah, you know, I would just say do it if you want to. And I'm not going to put my doctor information or all that in there, but just look it up. If you're in Texas, just look up best IVF doctor in Texas, and he'll probably pop up the person that I used. Wherever city you at, put in best IVF doctor, read reviews, you know, or get recommendation from your OB if you trust that person enough to give you that recommendation. But find you a good doctor, save your money or use your benefits, and have a baby. Because, you know, it's worth it. It works out. It works out, you know, in the end, it works out. So that's the video for today. Let me know if you have any questions or comments on my IVF journey / review. Peace.